think I'm gonna go.
To...
Chachi.
It's not safe to go hiking around here by yourself.
Is this the only road?
Like if we drove through this area, we'd get there faster?
Las Arenas is not a place you want to find yourself.
Hi, Alan, thanks very much for speaking to me. Good to speak to you.
Oh, it's great to speak to you too. Thanks for having me.
So, I mean, first of all, congratulations on the movie. Yeah, I loved it to bits. I watched it with my son last night. He's kind of, he's 14, he's getting into his horror movie. So that was quite a good kind of entrance into the horror genre. He loved it. We both loved it, especially the, I don't want to spoil it too much, especially with the animals. That when the animals turn up, it kind of, it got kind of full on for him.
Oh, good. Well, that's great.
Sorry?
That's great.
No, it's fantastic. Yes, I mean, I was just speaking to your co-star Carolina about an hour ago, so she was telling me all about it. So I couldn't believe that you actually work with real animals. I was completely blown away by that when she told me that.
Yeah, and Carolina was an absolute pro, and I think probably more accustomed to some of those animals than I am.
Yeah, she said something along those lines as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I was terrified, and I like to think of myself as someone who's not afraid of jumping in for anything when we're doing it with work. But I'm not accustomed. I'm from Newfoundland, Canada, which is the northeast, and we're in the middle of the North Atlantic. We do not have a lot of the animals that were in question, so I was a little more freaked out. And Carolina was incredible and was a real trooper about it.
But I mean, how much of that is real? Because I mean, I think we can give away a little bit away that there's snake bites and everything there. How much of that actually happened?
Well,
and obviously, I imagine they're not venomous, but I mean, it looks like the snake literally bit into you at one point in the film.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't. Well, it was movie magic. There was a lot of. It was a very safe. I worked with Nico Rees, one of the producers on the film. I worked with on Jack Ryan a few years previous in Colombia. And that's how I was introduced to this world and why I was asked to come do the movie, because we had a good time working together on Jack Ryan. And it was a tough, really, I'm sure you heard from Carolina, it was a tough shoot physically and emotionally. A lot of it was real. We lived a lot of that experience, and we were in that pit for an extended amount of time. It's not the part of Bogota that people might think of the tropical side of Colombia, but Bogota, because of its elevation, it's really not very warm.
Yeah.
Plus, we were on top of the mountain in Bogota filming, so it was cold as all get out, and it had a lot of challenges physically, but. I think the real crux of it was that Carolina and we'd never met, and we were introduced to each other 2 days before we started filming. She had just flown from Los Angeles overnight, just finished filming a very, very intense schedule of the shoot. She had to leave in the middle of filming and go sing at the Oscars.
Yeah, she was telling me about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and she was really, she was in a really tight timeline, plus she was at home, so she had to deal with her family and all this other stuff, but I was there like and completely isolated and focused only on the film. And despite all of that, I felt like the crux of the movie is between the two of us, and the energy between the two of us and the chemistry, and we had it from day one because we both approached the work with an open heart and a gratefulness, because it was a fun script and a real fun opportunity as an actor it was like I come from the theater. It was really like many ways
like a theatrical production. Yeah, definitely.
But with magic, with the magic.
I mean, you mentioned there obviously the chemistry that you managed to create there, even though you'd only just recently met. Obviously, a film like this, it's in close quarters, very confined spaces, claustrophobic. That's kind of like it's pivotal to the success of the movie. Not obviously the script as well, but the performance and the chemistry is vital. Can you tell me a little bit about what it was when this script reached your hands? How you knew that this could work as a confined space movie? Because there's a lot out there that really don't work. This one works really well, but how did you know just from the script that this could work?
Well, to be totally frank with you, I didn't. You never know. And depending, like Andreas, if we hadn't had the director we had, I think it would have been a very different movie. So my first conversation with him was like, I don't want to make an action movie. And I was like, great. Our tone meeting together was 5 minutes, it was just so much unspoken and so much trust in each other. And the same with me and Carolina and with the producers. It was just like, we're going to make this a drama and we're going to base this in relationship. And what I got from the script and what I was able to, what I was really taken with it was these two people are filled with a past that's very clear to me as a performer, very clear to me as a reader, that there's so many layers of resentment that's been built up over the years between the two of them, and they're in the middle of this divorce. Excuse me, I have to sneeze.
Bless you.
Sorry, I'm in Toronto. I'm not used to air conditioning, and air conditioning makes me sneeze.
But
Anyways,
you've been 5 weeks in a freezing cold quicksand, but
yeah, well, the cold I can deal with. Yeah, so it was about the personal relationships, about what they were emotionally going to be going through, and then I'd imagine if you were going through a divorce, the worst possible scenario you could put yourself in is to be trapped in a jungle in a life-threatening situation that you might think you're never going to get out of it, and it would cause you to reflect and cause you to really look back on your mistakes in your life and what you've done in a way you would never be able to do in a therapy chair. It's like it would be like an extreme therapy reality show, you know. Stick two people in a pit with the jungle's predators coming after you and see what happens with your marriage.
I think you just hit on so that could very well be a reality show in the very near future. I wouldn't put it past somebody to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, it would take off. Like, and you either, well, it's kind of like that Amazing Race show, you know, where it's like people are put into very stressful situations and how do they react? Well, for us, we were dramatizing that. And Carolina and I never spoke about any of our backstory. I love that, right? Like, she showed up with her work done. I showed up with my work done. We both, as uncomfortable as we were, we put a great deal of effort into always being connected to each other. You know, she called me her partner. I called her my partner in terms of professionally.
Yeah.
We didn't do any social time together because we never had time. Very rare anyways. And all of our time together on set was focused on doing the work and being positive toward each other and the crew. The crew in Colombia, and this is my second time working there, as I said, a lot of crossover with a lot of people who I worked with the first time. Everyone was very generous, very excited, very respectful about the work we were doing. And again, Andreas just approached the work as a filmmaker, as an actor with a point of view, as a director with a point of view. He was shooting a drama about two people in a harrowing situation. And it all just kind of worked because, you know, one day I believe we were a little bit in a flame, we say crooked, where you're a little grumpy. One day we were a tiny bit grumpy because it might have been day 3 or 4 in that pit. And that night, Carolina called me and said, I felt we were not the best we should be with each other today. Let's not do that again. And I was like, absolutely. We weren't insulting or weird. We were just a little tiny bit on edge. And she was like, let's make a pact that we never do that again. Like, she's just such a generous partner to work with. And that's how I like to work too. I like to have my full trust, and I don't need to get into what you're doing or comment on what you're doing or you don't want to make you can't make choices in this kind of thing where you're predetermining what you're going to do with each other. You just prep yourself and be ready for anything that happens. And we both just did it the same way, and it was kind of a miracle that way.
Yeah, but I mean, you can play with each other obviously as actors, but at the same time, because you're in this quicksand, I mean that kind of it makes things more complicated because you can't gesticulate as you would as in an everyday actor's job, no? So how did you manage to get that in sync with each other, and how did you overcome that obstacle?
Well, there were rules, right, about how you can move in the quicksand, and we're up to our neck, and we can't really move. Our special effects team, you know, we had this ringer who was a friend of one of our producers, who came down. He was from Cape Town. Jamie, you know, they rigged that thing so that we were comfortable as possible, but we didn't have any movement. So the challenge of that is for me, the benefit, you can only prepare yourself as much as you can for a part like that, or for 72 pages like that. You can only prepare yourself, and then you got to let go and do it. You got to live it, you got to breathe it, and you've got to be present with the other person. The other person, in this case, luckily, was doing the exact same thing. And we just kind of, you can't pretend to be in quicksand, because you'll look
Yeah.
like idiots.
Yeah.
You've got to be. This movie, I think, could be different, and good or bad, I don't know. I wouldn't have been interested in doing it another way, where maybe it was a little more tongue in cheek, or maybe it was a little more. There might have been more artifice. That wasn't what Carolina and I were going for. Something of all the actors, by the way, the cast, the rest of the cast, like they're ringers, the actors that were on board, and people who were doing the movie were doing it because they liked Nico, or they liked the director,
Right.
Andreas, and they were involved because they wanted to be a part of something special, or they were doing it for fun. But everyone brought the same level of professionalism, so there was no faking. And so, yeah, we couldn't move around, but that's what the requirements were, and that's what the rules of the world were. So, in fact, it makes it easier for you in a way.
Yeah, but at the same time, obviously working with Carolina, I'm sure wasn't so difficult. But once you start bringing snakes and hand-sized ants onto the set, that's a whole different ballgame, no?
Well, and that's for Carolina to deal with. I mean, she was the one dealing with that,
With the
and I
ants,
mean,
no, yeah.
she's like no fear, no fear.
Hmm.
Tiny person. You fit in my pocket. Like no, zero fear. Extremely worldly too. Like has seen a lot in the world, has done a lot, very insanely successful. Zero ego for someone with such a star around her, and her music career, her popularity as an actor. She's she could have brought a very different game to it. But that's my experience with working with people from Colombia. It reminds me very much of Newfoundland, which sounds very odd because they're completely different parts of the world. But there was very little ego from anybody on that set. The only ego that I saw was healthy people who were invested in their professionalism. That's what I saw. I didn't see people who were making it about them, and certainly she wasn't. She was just. I don't think that works. It wouldn't have been a very good time for me, and it was one of the best experiences in my career, just as an actor, to be able to be in those scenes and do that work. Like, some actors don't ever get to do 2 pages in a year. I'm very, very fortunate that I get to do a lot more than that, and in a situation like this, it was just such a challenge that I doubt I'll ever face again. So that's why I jumped at it, because Nico asked me to do it, so I was like, of course, because I'd kind of follow him anywhere, and B, I was like, the challenge of it was good or bad. Will I ever watch it? I don't know. Will I see it? I don't know. I'm at that stage of my career. You used to hear actors talk about that when I was a young actor, and I couldn't imagine the idea of not watching your work. But I don't do it really to see it. I do it to experience it and leave the best I can. And at the end of the day, I'm not in control with what happens, and you just got to hope for the best. I've seen little bits of this movie, and I'm proud of what we did. And I think it's kind of one of those ones that could take off. Those horror thriller, terror thriller, I guess would be like what I'd call it.
Mhm.
So who knows?
No.
Who knows? That's not why I did it. I did it.
You did, but you definitely should be proud. I mean, I was just going to say that. I mean, the opening scene. It blew me away that you said that you didn't really do any prep about background that you shared with Carolina before, because at the beginning it really does feel like you've spent a lifetime
together. Yeah.
Yeah, it really does.
And we did our own prep. I did. I went to Colombia 3 weeks early or something, and just I've developed this thing where if I have the time and the space to make time for something, I do it. So I went there early and just locked myself away for like 3 weeks and just focused only on the role and the background and the story. And I did mountains of work and put tons of thought, and I focused on insane amounts of detail. I just didn't make decisions on how it would play, because then you're dead. You're dead in the sand, you're dead in the mud. if you predetermine how it's going to play when you haven't met your co-star. And so I just basically put all of my time into what was possible and what was possible for our story. We just didn't discuss what we decided, because isn't that the perfect way to approach a marriage that is dead because of no communication? They weren't communicating. So whatever backstory she had prepared, as long as it was real for her, and whatever I had prepared, as long as it was real for me, in many ways, I personally like to keep that as a secret. I don't want to share that with someone because it's none of their business.
Yeah.
Someone's just going to tell you why it doesn't work if you try to share it with them. And for me, I didn't care what she was doing, because as long as it was there when we were there, and it was like first day, she's also like the nicest person. So it's hard to be mad at her.
Yeah.
She brings such joy and positivity to every conversation.
She's a bundle of fun, yeah.
And that's her. Like, and I tell you, we saw each other for real. There's no hiding yourself in what we went through. There's no hiding yourself. You can try your best. And I saw her for real. You know, she saw me for me. And, you know.
So yeah, just before I let you guys, I mean, obviously I was having a look. I couldn't see anything, any projects that you've got online that you've got coming up. But what I wanted to, I'm interested in, obviously you've written quite a few screenplays for series and films also. Is that something you've had a chance to sit down and maybe to think about doing again, or is there something that you've been writing that you'd like to get going sometime soon?
Yeah, thanks. That's my primary job normally. So this poster behind me is a TV show I'm currently in pre-production for. I'm in a writing room right now for a show that I'm developing. I'm hoping to go to camera next year, if all things go right. I'm acting in various shows and films. Like I have a series that's on the air right now in Canada and on the CW in the US, and that's going for a second season, and I'm about to start prep on another movie I'm acting in. And so I like to be really, really busy. I like to be really, really busy. And so I like to run my own shows, run my own shows. I like to be in them. I love acting in things that are not mine, like Quicksand or like this movie I'm going to do, where you're totally, it's not your problem. Your only focus has to be the work as an actor. I feel like all of it feeds each other for me. Producing is like, I live in Newfoundland. I live in a weird, really regional, distant place from the rest of the world in the industry. And the reason why I do that is I love the place. I'm from there, but also too because I produce shows there. So it's so there's a number of stuff going all at the same time. And like the part of the reason why I like to go somewhere early if I'm shooting on location, which I often am, is because I want to get away from all of that and just focus on that.
Right.
And so yeah.
Brilliant. Well, listen, Allan, thank you so much for your time. Pleasure to meet you. Wish you the best of luck with the film when it comes out on Shudder, and I hope to speak to you again sometime soon about something else.
Anytime. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks so much. Take care of yourself. Bye now.
Cheers thank you.
Josh! It's right there. You have to trust me. We're gonna get out of this.
No one's coming for us.
You don't get to decide.